Morning has broken like the first morning. Blackbird has spoken like the first bird. Praise for the singing, praise for the morning, praise for them springing fresh from the world. Sweet the rain's new fall, sunlit from heaven.
A reading from the Holy Gospel according to Matthew. Jesus said to the chief priest and the elders of the people, "Hear another parable. There was a landowner who planted a vineyard, put a hedge around it, dug a wine press in it, and built a tower. Then he leased it to tenants and went on a journey. When vintage time drew near, he sent his servants to the tenants to obtain its produce. But the tenants seized the servants, and one they beat, another they killed, and a third they stoned. Again he sent other servants, more numerous than the first ones, but they treated them in the same way. Finally, he sent his son to them, thinking, 'They will respect my son.' But when the tenants saw the son, they said to one another, 'This is the heir. Come, let us kill him and acquire his inheritance.' They seized him, threw him out of the vineyard, and killed him. What will the owner of the vineyard do to those tenants when he comes?" They answered him, "He will put those wretched men to a wretched death, and lease his vineyard to other tenants, who will give him the produce at the proper times." Jesus said to them, "Did you never read in the Scriptures, 'The stone that the builders rejected has become the cornerstone. By the Lord has this been done, and it is wonderful in our eyes. Therefore I say to you, the kingdom of God will be taken away from you and given to a people that will produce its fruit." The Gospel of the Lord. When we hear about vineyards, we remember that they are sort of delicate areas. They need quite a bit of attention in order to have fruit that will come from the vine that will be good tasting and actually warm human hearts. So wine is of great importance, what it was in the Holy Land, and in fact a group of grapes are what is equivalent to Canada's maple leaf. It's a symbol of the Holy Land itself. But if we look at it a little more deeply, Christ died for our world and all of its people, and therefore the whole earth itself, in some way, is a holy land. But the vineyard is what the Lord has given to us. The vineyard is the work of creation. And if we go from the big boom that occurred 14 billion years ago, they say, and all the time it took up to the time that the earth itself as a planet began to evolve, that would be 10 billion years. And then look at the 4 billion that is connected to the making of our earth to what it is today. We see that God, in his love and mercy, was really respecting a certain aspect of time in order to give to us something that is extremely valuable. So if we look at it that way, we say, well, we can have that story that we just read, and it can apply to Israel at the time in which they had killed some prophets in the past, and more than that, they were responsible in some ways for the very death of Christ himself. And so as we see that happening, and he making this the story, and then asking the very people who were hostile to him who it was and what should be done, and they said that put that wretched person to a wretched death for doing those horrible things. We see that there is really here in this parable, as in many parables, sort of a contrast. The contrast is between what evil done and its determination to be effected as evil, and Christ using that very process to show that in the opposite, we should be doing good with determination to do only good things to the vineyard that the Lord has made. And if we look at it that way, then this story is not just a story about Israel 2,000 years ago, or what had happened for 1,000 years before that in killing the prophets too, but this is a story that involves us also, and it involves what we do. And we would say in one way, we've never done anything like that. We've never killed the very people who are building the earth. And then we look a second time and say, what about the earth itself? We are people who are like the killers and the stoning that we talked about, but we have done this to our earth itself. In 100 or 200 years, we have messed up our world in a very definite way, in which we know it today by the climate change that is occurring. It's human-caused in many ways. And those humans are doing something to earth and the living earth itself, what those people were, the tenants were doing to the servants. God's servants are the ones who speak out in favor of doing good things. The tenants are the human beings that inherit our earth and make a profit out of it. And we've seen this profiteering occurring all across, especially energy areas. And this has to be spoken about, because really we are equivalently the same as the killers of the vineyard, the vineyard's servants. And if we look at it that way, then we are people who have made a major mistake. But that's not the end of it. In fact, we have to take, and what has been rejected as people not able to do things maybe, have become people who are called by the Lord to make a change, to save the earth itself, to enter into the saving work of Christ himself. And therefore, it is not that we just look at the shame of what has been done, and it is true that it's pollution and waste. They're there, and we cannot deny it. Very few people deny the pollution and the environmental damage that has occurred. More would say we can't do much about it, and that we let it go. But that's not true. We are protectors of God's creation. The vineyard is a very delicate place. It is a place where we as human beings have been asked to come and bring about the work that goes into saving each other and saving our own selves, the work of salvation. And that is important for us to see right now. We are to really go into a major change, a renewal of our whole economy. This is a great demand being placed upon us in order to save and to share with each other. Sharing is what is important. Sharing should have been the opposite of what was the parable, and that is the tenants could have shared some of the good things too, instead of hurting people. And so we look now and say that we don't just stop pollution and the things that are wrong. We rebuild our earth, make it a better place, take the stone that's been rejected and build it into something new, build it into a really and true vineyard with its wine press and all the towers and everything that's needed to keep our people with a good quality of life. So this story applies to us as much as it applied to the scribes and Pharisees who heard it for the first time.
Morning has broken like the first morn. earliest bird. Praise for the sea.